Hi guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm going to show you how to paint these colorful trees, which I have for sale on my website. Link is below. These trees as well, colorful holiday trees or regular green trees. So if you want to learn how to do these, it is easy. Follow along. I'm going to do two versions of this, one with the cheap Prang school watercolors and one with the more expensive artist watercolors. So you have a triangle. The branches are going to kind of come up because they grow toward the sun and they're going to be staggered. So, and they, some of them pop out more than others because it's nature, but they essentially go like this. Then you have the branches that come toward you, and these are going to look like they're coming down or even up because this is called foreshortening. So they kind of come toward you, and you might see them like this way. So they're coming out at you. And then you have your trunk. So, and off of every branch, you have these little other branches like this, right? And they kind of get smaller as you get up. So this looks like a terrible drawing, but so you can draw it out if you want to. I don't generally draw it out. If you have trouble making a line, like a straightish line, then take like a really light pencil and just make a line. And then you can mark out like, where's the top of your tree? And sometimes the top of the tree goes really long. So you just kind of, oh, now my furnace is going. Awesome. So I'm just gonna kind of mark out like how wide do I want this and where do I want it to end. So I made a plan for my first tree, and you can't really see it very well, but you can kind of see it. And what is interesting about these Prang watercolors, they're bright and they're very pigmented, but they also have, they're bright and they're very pigmented. So they just, when you use them straight out of here, they look a little bit beginner. So mixing your own colors, as I've already done with some greens and blues here, is a great way to start looking a little bit more professional. So I'm gonna start out then with red, and I'm gonna put it over here, and I'm gonna be mixing my colors as I go. So I'm just gonna take straight red from here, and if I'm using my fancy watercolors, I'd probably start with like a hot pink. One thing that I miss in this palette is the pink. Like, I feel like everybody needs a pink. So if you have a chance to get an extra pink, go for it. But I'll do another one with different paint over here. So I'm gonna take my red, and I'm gonna take my brush, and the closer that your hand is to the tip of your brush, the more control you will have. The further back, you can cover big areas and you have a looser kind of feel. But I'm gonna bring my hand kind of close to the top, and I'm gonna barely touch this. So I am like, do you see this tiny little hair? I'm pretty much touching my paper only with one brush hair. And there's the top of my tree. Now I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna give you guys a tree reference photo as well in the files. So I'll do that. Let's see. Or it will be on my website if this is for my YouTube people. Okay, so there's this, and I am just barely touching that. Okay, now I'm gonna wash my brush. Never leave your brush in the water because the bristles will bend and you want it to stay nice and straight. So if you leave it in the water, it tends to bend. So I'm gonna wash it in my dirty water, and I'm gonna very carefully just roll it off and wipe it. And then I am gonna grab my clean water here, and I'm gonna grab some orange, and I'm gonna mix that in to the red that I already had. And I'm just gonna wipe my brush off, get a little dirty. You have to do a lot of water just because you don't want it to be muddy. And I'm gonna just add a drop of water to that to lighten it just a bit. And then I'm gonna maybe grab some yellow if it's not orange enough, because I do want it to be like a very strong orange. And there we have a really nice orange. I wanna be able to tell the difference. So even if you just have to do mostly yellow, or you could just drop yellow into the red. But if you're slow at painting, I'm pretty fast at painting, so I could just mix yellow into this and kind of make my own orange. I could do that. Okay, so now I've dried my brush off a little bit. I'm gonna dip this into the orange, and I'm gonna come up from the opposite direction this way. And I'm just gonna kind of add those two together. And I'm gonna also, if you need to plan, like if you're doing it red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, then you wanna plan how much space do I wanna use for each color, because you might run out of space. So I'm just bringing this up, and I'm kind of making it thicker sometimes by the trunk because that's where the branches are coming toward me. And I'm gonna do it about the same amount. Yellow is gonna be a little bit less because yellow doesn't show as well, but I've got this. So far I've got some orange in there, and I don't wanna pick it up because it's gonna drip, but orange. Okay, now I'm gonna grab the yellow. I'm gonna wash my brush with my dirty water, and then I'm gonna get it into the clean water, tap it off a little bit, and I'm just grabbing the yellow. If I had a place to mix this with some water, I would. So usually I do have a palette. I'm just gonna do it in the corner here. And I do mix my paint with a little bit of water because it's too thick if you take it right out of here. This is very thick paint. So you want it to be watery. You want it to be like tea or coffee consistency of that. So I'm gonna take my yellow. I'm just gonna go up here. And I wanna work quickly because I'm gonna be blending this yellow into the orange. So it's like a gradient. So it's definitely, and this is why I didn't use a lot of pencil, because the yellow is transparent, so you're not really able to cover anything up if you have pencil marks on this. All right, I'm gonna grab a little bit more yellow because I want it to be a little brighter. And the nice thing about watercolor is I can wait for this to dry and I can do another layer and it'll look fantastic, or I can just leave it as is. So I mixed my yellow into my orange. So now I have red, orange, yellow. And again, this isn't super bright, so I'm gonna go back while I still have it here and I'm gonna grab some more orange out of my orange and I'm just gonna dot that in there and add a little more orange into there to make it brighter. I'm gonna do the same with the red. And the dotting, like grabbing a little bit of paint and just barely dotting it in there is a fun way to do it and to blend the colors and make it kind of flow. Okay, and I'm gonna wash my brush, get the clean water, wipe it off, grab a tiny bit of red, and I'm actually gonna grab it right out of the palette. And I'm just gonna go for the very top and go over that again. And you might already have it really dark, but I tend to start light and then build up my color. And if you like it light, it's totally fine. But if you want a little bit more vibrancy, get in there and add another layer. It's much easier to add with watercolor than to take away. All right, so there's that. And if you don't like it, or if there's something that's too dark, you can squish up your paper towel and just blot it a little bit and it will take the color. All right, I'm gonna grab some more of that yellow because I want everything to be wet when I'm mixing it in. So when I get in here with my green, I wanna make sure that my yellow is still wet paint. So here's this. Okay, now for the green, I'm gonna grab this, get the clean water, and then the green is very bright. So I'm gonna mix the green with a little bit of yellow just to make it look a little bit less like, I don't know, pedestrian. So I've got some green. This is like a nice lime green. And again, I'm gonna come up from the bottom, and this is where you can get muddy if you're not careful. So I'm gonna come up from the bottom. I'm not really touching the yellow yet. I'm gonna start my green branches and I'm gonna have them come out. And I've just kind of bringing these out and adding other little offshoots. And I have to remember to make this a little wider than the color above it. And it gets a little bit more complicated as you go down because you have to add more branches. And if you wanted to get, you know, really detailed with this, I could even make like a darker green in the middle for my trunk. Like I could mix a little blue into here, but I'm not being too complicated with, as this is a beginner project. So now I'm gonna rinse my brush. And this is just water. Tap off this on the side and I'm just gonna bring this green up a little bit into the yellow so that it blends nicely and easily. And I can always add, but I'm not gonna be able to take away that much. So I'm just gonna kind of bring that in there. And then I might grab some more of that green and I'm just gonna kind of drop this in here. And little tiny dots of color are fun because it almost has like a holiday look to it. The green and the yellow is probably the hardest to mix because it kind of goes from a darker color to a lighter color. So I'm gonna get my green and just kind of get in there. And if your branches aren't perfect, it's okay because it's a tree. All right, so I've got my green. Now I'm gonna do blue. Rinse, 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 rinse. Always remember to do the clean. And I'm gonna grab this blue and I'm going to mix it on this side with some water because the blue is very dark, so I definitely want it to be lighter. And I'm gonna mix it with the green so it's almost like a turquoisey blue. And I'll do the darker blue in a bit. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna make a smaller section here because as it gets darker, it's okay to make a smaller section. And I'm just gonna bring that up. And as I'm making these branches, they're gonna get bigger as they go down. So you can actually press your brush a little bit more into the paper and it'll make thicker lines. And I'm doing the same thing on this guy. And then I'm gonna try to grab like a royal blue because I even want to vary my blues. It's not just red, orange, yellow, green, blue. It's like yellow, green, blue, green, every color that you can get in here is great. And wait till you see it with the fancy watercolors. It's really colorful. Okay, and now I'm gonna grab the blue and I'm gonna get it straight out of the palette, and I'm still gonna mix it with a little water because I can always go back and add. And I'm gonna get this kind of bright blue, and I'm gonna do this color now, which will be better to blend with purple because this is kind of a cool blue more than a green blue. There is a cool and warm version of every color, even yellow and orange, which is hard to believe. So you want to kind of try to get both in here. And all I'm doing is just lines. Press and pull, press and pull. And whatever hand you use to paint, when you go on the opposite side, like when I paint on the left side, it's harder for me because I have to turn my brush this way because I'm left-handed. But if you're right-handed, it's probably on this side. You have to kind of flip your hand this way and this way. All right, now I'm gonna go for the purple. I'm gonna grab the purple and I am going to mix this over here. I'm running out of mixing space with a little bit of water because purple is really dark. So you wanna make sure that you're mixing it with water. Oops, and I dripped on my paper. And I'm gonna grab the purple. I'm almost out of space. So I'm almost out of time too. I'm just grabbing this purple. I'm doing this little guy. And I'm gonna drop some of this purple back up into the blue. And if you're having trouble blending, get your brush water, just water, and just drop that in there. And then if you wanted to circle back around, if you had a huge tree, you could go purple into red and make like a violet. I'm gonna do that with the trunk. So I'm gonna kind of end that with my purple, and I'm mixing it with the red, and I'm gonna bring my trunk up. And this is a beautiful color. The purple and the Prang mixed with the red makes a really pretty plum. And I'm just gonna get that there. And adding those variations, like when you add the plum to the purple and you don't just use like one color of purple, that's where you're gonna look a little bit more sophisticated in terms of your skills than if you were just to use one color. Thanks for doing art with me. If you like my videos, subscribe and I'll make some more.